Welcome back to the MovieBabble podcast. Happy Mother's Day. I got Nick and I got Jonathan on today. Firstly, I want to kind of start it with, since it is Mother's Day, Nick, favorite movie mom or what's a movie mom that comes to mind for you on this Mother's Day?
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Literally would not be doing this podcast without you, I guess. Trying to think. I really love Laurie Metcalf from Lady Bird. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I feel like all of us grew up with Sally Field from Forrest Gump, for better or worse. I don't know. I don't really like that movie much anymore, but like I saw that movie like 50 times as a kid.
Yeah, Sally Field, that's a good call, yeah.
But yeah, Laurie Metcalf, just a great recent mom.
That's good. Yeah, Jonathan, what's your pick here on Mother's Day?
Yeah, I mean, my mind usually goes to Disney, but maybe it's just because I woke up in a weird mood today. But I guess I got to go with Toni Collette from Hereditary.
Iconic.
That's the one.
Icon. Yeah, I called dibs before we jumped on, so got to go with the mom of all animated moms, and that is Miss Elastigirl, Helen Parr.
Yeah.
Great movie mom.
Thick.
Best there is. Come on, who wouldn't want a superhero mom?
Great mom though. She is a great mom in those movies.
Great mom. A protector.
And
she's also thick. It's whatever.
With like 5 C's.
The scene I think of is the plane scene. That's like her best mom moment there. Saving the family.
Oh, true superhero.
That's a good ass scene, by the way.
Very good.
Like Brad Bird.
Can we just talk about The Incredibles for the rest of this pod?
Yeah, let's just change the podcast.
But yeah, so with that, happy Mother's Day. Now let's jump into some topics today. We got some good stuff. Firstly, we're going to start off with some news that broke surrounding the HFPA, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and Scarlett Johansson. So she has come out and talked about how the industry should step back from the HFPA, and obviously they run the Golden Globes. She has talked about some sexual harassment that has come her way from some of the members of that body. And she just kind of has been talking about how it represents a era of kind of Hollywood and kind of the awards section of Hollywood that just, it's kind of a culture that she believes Hollywood should step away from. She cites Harvey Weinstein as kind of one of the people that made the Golden Globes popular as kind of a way to try to push your early Oscar push, right? So that's kind of her take on that. I think there's a lot to unpack here with it. I mean, this isn't just it, right? The last few months, we've seen a lot come out around the HFPA, and we've seen kind of this organization, I wouldn't say crumble in a sense, but they are not looking too hot at all. Nick, what was your take on this and just some of the other kind of surrounding things around the HFPA?
Yeah, there was the first report from the LA Times that came out right before the Golden Globes or right after, kind of in that early February stage. But yeah, it's not good. And I feel like we've all kind of known this, even if you really didn't know much about the goings-ons of the HFPA. I feel like we've always known them as the really small group of maybe journalists who are schmoozed by having dinners with actors and going places and getting kickbacks and money and whatnot. But the initial LA Times report kind of just like confirmed everything I already thought about them, where it's a crazy laundry list of stuff that they've gone through. I think one of not the funniest, that might be the wrong word to use here, but one of the most outrageous things in there is about they brought the Netflix flew out 30 members to the Emily in Paris set.
Yeah.
Had them set up in Paris for the longest time in this hotel that cost like $1,400 a night or something like that. Just wild stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's been a way overdue that HFPA has this sort of reckoning. I mean, I've kind of been in the place where just let it die. Let's create something new. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of truth in what Scarlett Johansson is saying, and Netflix and Amazon and other studios have kind of jumped at kind of building this narrative as well. But it's a sticky situation, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been a lot. I mean, there's also allegations of directors and studios that say they just kind of don't watch your movie. Like people have tried to get them to watch screenings or come to screenings and just no one shows, or they reject it. I'm trying to remember who, but I think it was, I can't quite remember, but this came out around the 2018 awards season, 2018-19, where there were directors trying to get them to just sit down and just watch the films. I think it was Queen and Slim, I think, was one of the major ones that they brought to the HFPA to watch, and they just kind of said, no, we're not really going to go to this screening, and just no one watched it. So it's a problem, right? And I think when you have a body that is that small, so yeah, there's definitely going to be issues. Jonathan, what's your take on this year?
Yeah, I mean, even before I was like super into like movies like how I am now, I remember when I was like maybe a little bit more than like a casual moviegoer, but still like not a lot of knowledge. I remember like the one things I would hear about the Golden Globes and the HFPA is like they're bullshit. I just heard they like to party, and I heard they don't matter at all, which I don't know if they like don't matter at all, if I'm being honest, because a lot of patterns and predictions come from the Golden Globes, whatever. But that's really what I heard of even before I was like super into it. So like I feel like there was always kind of like what Nick was saying. There's always this feeling that like something like this was just like bound to break even. So I guess it's here now. I mean, I don't care if it dies, I don't care, but I feel like low key, and I know we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, like the Golden Globes like show itself actually like maintains, I don't know if popularity is the right term, but it doesn't drop as much as like the Oscars drop like year from year, essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
And maybe it's because they have like TV shows too, but I think there's stuff that like honestly other places can learn from them, both from this allegation and craziness, but also from like the show itself.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've seen obviously the ratings for the Oscars take big declines since the kind of late 2010s, early 2010s, late 2000s. And the Golden Globes have been very consistent. Like you look at those ratings, and essentially the last decade, they haven't really gone up or down. You kind of look at like a line graph, there is really not much of a change for them. So they keep very consistent with their ratings, kind of besides what I'd call this year's the asterisk year for a lot of award shows and just television programming. But yeah, they keep generally pretty popular. But yeah, they definitely have some issues. There was also the huge issue that came out. I think this was when obviously the Five Bloods got blanked. Ma Rainey and One Night Miami didn't get into picture, and Judas wasn't really kind of pushing it at that point in the award season. But I think there was a lot of calls for them to kind of try to diversify. Apparently, they had no Black journalists in the organization. So I mean, it's just issue after issue for them, and they've committed to adding 10 apparently by the end of this year. But it's a problem for sure.
What do you guys know why it's like so hard to like? Why is it so limited? Like the number.
It really
Do you
just
have to like
seems
win a
like
gold medal?
yeah, it
to,
really
like, be
just
in there?
seems like they have all of their kickback systems set up. So it's easier to circulate all that money to all these people if they keep it to a small number. Because if you read all the tea leaves, it really does seem that like they're a nonprofit organization, but they have so much money coming in from NBC for their TV contract and stuff like that, where they're just finding ways to circulate this money where they can kind of get away from it with the IRS. And if there's less people around, I guess you can kind of figure there's more deniability if you can kind of get some people on your side. But yeah, it's a weird thing because I'm kind of on the side that like none of these award shows really matter, but I think that's from my weird, I watch 200 new movies a year perspective. Because to someone like, I was talking to my brother about award stuff where he maybe watches 5 new movies a year. A lot of them in theaters are like your Avengers and stuff like that. But he loves watching the Oscars. And to him and to like millions of others, the Oscars and the Golden Globes are shows where you can get introduced to a lot of stuff. And it's kind of like, here's all the great stuff that came out this year. And it's a lot of people use that to catch up on stuff. So in that sense, like the Golden Globes does matter because to a lot of people out there, it's their introduction to a lot of this stuff. So that's kind of the one thing where it's like, I would love I enjoy watching the Golden Globes because it's so ridiculous and everyone is so drunk all the time. And like one of my favorite moments from a few years ago was someone made an Aloha joke, the Cameron Crowe movie. And you could just hear Emma Stone in the background just yelling like, I'm sorry, from the audience. And it was like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And you just don't have that at the Oscars because they're a little more button up, a little more like, oh, like cinema matters. Like there's a little bit of earnestness there that the Golden Globes doesn't really care about. So I like watching it, but at the same time, like, yeah, like they nominated music last year and Jared Leto for Little
twice.
Things. Yeah, like that shit's ridiculous. And I feel like they're in a position where they can push these really, like, they can push really important and thoughtful films, and then you have this stuff, and then stuff like music gets more traction than it deserves. So it's yeah, it's wild. I really hope that something changes with this, because it's as fun as it is to go nuts whenever we see the Golden Globes nominations every year. It hurts my soul just a little bit to see it when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, the Golden Globes, I think the debate of whether it matters or doesn't, I think it does. I think as Jonathan mentioned, they're just kind of setting trends. Like, I think this is very nitpicky of me, but I think if Glenn Close didn't land a Globes nomination, she wouldn't have any award season at all. That's my personal guess.
Probably,
so, I mean, I feel like it does in a way set or kind of amass kind of traction for future award shows. And that's what Scarlett Johansson pointed to. She said that's kind of the reason the Golden Globes became so big was it was Harvey Weinstein around those late 90s, early 2000s, really wanted to, I wouldn't say hijack the HFPA, but he wanted to make it a bigger thing for audiences, for viewers, just in Hollywood, so it could be a springboard for movies for the entire award season. So it's certainly an interesting dichotomy, but I think we can step away from that, because in probably 10 months time, we'll be talking about how awful they are again, whenever the next round of nominations come out. So yeah, we'll jump into a new movie this week, Mainstream. I'm going to let Nick jump into this one, because he's the man who has watched Mainstream, Andrew Garfield's newest. I heard it's wild though. So how is it?
It's very wild. But yeah, this was kind of I don't know if it's a light week, maybe an off week for just mainstream releases. Sorry for the pun that I didn't realize I was making when I said it. But like, we had that Guy Ritchie movie, Wrath of Man, which just sounds like the most bro movie ever come out. And other than that, it was just a lot of, it's just unbelievable testosterone. Jason Statham, a lot of other British dudes just being tough, every Guy Ritchie movie basically. But yeah, other than that, we just had Mainstream, which I think is a really fascinating little movie that no one really likes except me. So I wanted to talk about it on my own podcast. But yeah, this is the second movie from Coppola, which every time there's something that comes out from a Coppola, I have to look back at the Coppola family tree to remember how crazy it is, because you have like your Francis Fords, your Talia Shire is in there,
your Nicolas Cages.
Nick Cage, Jason Schwartzman is in there too. It's wild. But yeah, this is Gia Coppola's second movie, coming after a movie which I quite liked and I watched this weekend for the first time as well. It's called Palo Alto, which came out in 2013. I highly recommend that movie. But yeah, so this is Andrew Garfield's probably wackiest performance in his career, possibly. And I think that's the kind of the selling point for this movie. So Andrew Garfield is this awful social media influencer. So the lead character is actually Maya Hawke in this movie, who I quite like in other things and Stranger Things and whatnot. But she grows a relationship for this guy. His name's Link in the movie, and just starts making videos with him. And he goes under the code name No One Special and amasses a crazy following on YouTube and whatnot. Everyone goes nuts for him. And this entire movie is basically just about like how awful social media culture is. He grows like this crazy following, and the entire time he's saying you shouldn't watch all this stuff, and yet he's growing such a following doing that. So there's that kind of hypocrisy there. But I think the main selling point to the movie itself is that Andrew Garfield runs down an LA street with a giant dildo on. So that's like the best part of the movie. It's insane. And apparently like that was just happening in real life, and people on the streets were like, what the fuck is happening? Is Andrew Garfield having a nervous meltdown? Like, what is going on here? But it was for a movie. There's also another scene where he takes a fake shit on a table while he's being interviewed by Johnny Knoxville and Jake Paul, among others, which is a sight to be seen. Yikes. But yeah, he's on one in this movie, and I think we're going to talk about Andrew Garfield's post Spider-Man career in a second. But it's a very, very bizarre turn for him as a performer, kind of in the long line of many weird post Spider-Man movies. But it's a very strange movie that I think a lot of people don't like because it's filled with awful characters. And me being the resident liker of awful character movies quite likes that, because this movie is kind of all about how just empty and pointless a lot of these people's existences are. And so they kind of glom on to this idea of really quick fame, and that's through YouTube. And then obviously the YouTube algorithm and whatnot gets into it. And then people start to love these people for doing absolutely weird shit. And then the culture at large is intoxicated from there. So I think it's really interesting in that sense. It's definitely not a great movie. I think it's more of an oddity than a good movie. Especially in how this movie depicts like actual like shooting YouTube. Like it seems like Coppola was like aware of how YouTube works, kind of, but not totally, because it ends up being like his big show is like a game show that he has on his YouTube channel, and it's filmed like a TV broadcast. And it's just like, that's like just not how YouTube works. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But and there's a lot of stylistic choices throughout the movie where it's like at one point Maya Hawke pukes like emojis out into like a sink or something like that. So like I can understand why a lot of people are turned off to that, but I think in my own galaxy brained way of looking at this movie, like the awful stylistic choices mirror how just pointless a lot of these characters are. And this movie doesn't really give you an in with any character. You really don't even relate to any of these people. Like Maya Hawke on the screen or on the page is basically the character you're supposed to relate to and is your entry point into this world. But she's just a nothing person who's just kind of floating through life and looking for her purpose, and she does YouTube stuff. So a lot of comparisons to Palo Alto in that respect, where Coppola seems to be interested in these characters who don't really have much purpose in life and kind of how it devolves from there. But yeah, interesting, weird little movie. It's available for rent right now. Andrew Garfield, again, wears a dildo on LA. So that's kind of what
that's enough for me.
Yeah. So it's really strange, but I think I'd recommend it on that level. Just, it's a very odd movie. I think if nothing else, it's a conversation starter.
Nah, I'm down. I'll check it out 100%.
But yeah, the reason I wanted to talk about this movie is I wanted to talk about Andrew Garfield because I think this guy is fascinating. So we have Spider-Man, which came out, the second one came out, 2014?
Yeah.
But since then, he has been on a very weird path of movies. So after that, his first movie was 99 Homes, which was a post-housing crisis collapse movie with Michael Shannon in it. It's directed by Ramin Bahrani, which is a pretty good little movie. Then you had a Hacksaw Ridge, the Mel Gibson movie, which feels like a lifetime ago.
He was nominated for that, wasn't
he?
Yeah. And then Silence, the same year.
Let me just say, like, but both those in the same year for me is quite impressive. I watched both of these recently. I like Silence more, to be honest, out of the two. I think it's pretty powerful. But Andrew Garfield is like, he balls out in both movies. Like he's certainly really good. He's really good in both. Like they're like, I wouldn't call them similar performances, but both these films certainly have, well, Silence obviously, but there's a religious streak through them, a faith streak through both films. So no doubt, I mean, Silence is a religious epic, right? But even his character in Hacksaw Ridge, I mean, this is kind of before, in my opinion, he started to jump in doing the weird stuff. These two movies, like, this is him kind of showing his really kind of actor side of him, doing these two movies in 2016, and both are good, but he's just really good in both of these movies.
Yeah, he's that's a tough 1-2 punch in terms of like the depths of self you have to go through for those movies. They're just really tough hangs, both of them. I think Silence is the better movie from my perspective. I really liked Hacksaw Ridge at the time, but then it's like, wait, this movie about pacifism is also one of the most bloody movies I've seen in the longest time in Hacksaw Ridge. So it's like, wait, what are you doing there, Mel? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with him in those two movies. And then, so after that, he goes on to Breathe, which is kind of I think that the most stereotypical biopic movie that he's ever been in. I think it was Andy Serkis directed that movie. But then we get into the really weird stuff, which is his last two movies. So Under the Silver Lake, a fucking weird movie that A24 just kind of buried. It was directed by David Robert Mitchell. Is that his name? I think it's Mitchell David Robert
David Robert Mitchell.
David Robert Mitchell. Yeah, the guy who did It Follows, who they just gave full reign to just do this weird 2.5 hour long movie that amounts to nothing, but I think is a really fascinating movie. And now we have Mainstream, which is kind of in the same vein of Andrew Garfield playing completely monstrous characters, because he's awful in Under the Silver Lake. His character is a nobody, nothing. I heard him describe it as it's like the dude from Big Lebowski mixed with Travis Bickle. It's this descent into madness for this like guy who does nothing in his life, and then he goes into Mainstream, which again wears a massive dildo on LA.
Doesn't he have 2 more coming out this year?
Yeah, and so I
know the musical.
Yeah, which was the it's Lin-Manuel Miranda musical, right?
Yeah,
directorial debut.
Boom, which I have to say, I hate the title. But
it's awful. I agree. It's not.
Hey, do you want to watch Tick Tick Boom? It's like, what? What'd you just say to me?
Lin-Manuel Miranda is he's a talent, but like the dude makes me know how to cringe sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess hot take with him. I'm of the mind that he's a great writer, but he should never act in anything.
Oh,
that's my
me
take.
Me too.
Okay, good.
I've said that exact thing.
Yes.
I've said that exact thing.
Because I'm really excited for In the Heights, because he's not in that, which he wrote it. So it makes me really happy.
Yeah, I mean, so what? Tick Tick Boom is his directorial debut, starring Andrew Garfield, right? So that'll be interesting. Then he's also got The Eyes of Tommy Faye, that are Tammy
when
Faye.
he's like
Jim Baker.
Yeah, and he's like, it's about a televangelist, so there's the religious thing there. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read his interview that he did with IndieWire this week, Andrew Garfield, but it just seems like it's weird because I feel like he's one of the many in the long line of actors to have a really famous role and then try to buck against that with his next few, So he says that he really likes this time that he had with Spider-Man, and he really is appreciative of the role. But then also he's like, yeah, every role since then, I'm just trying to do something completely different. So it's a weird where he's appreciative but not. And I feel like that's a lot with what a lot of actors feel these days when they have these really big time roles now. But he's
like every comic book hero.
Yeah, it's every big guy. Like even you see like the original Star Wars cast where they had a lot of trouble kind of just moving out and doing their own stuff. It's really tough sometimes. So I can understand it. He's kind of like the Robert Pattinson, where he's just, I'm going to go out and do crazy shit now that I have a lot of money and I can just kind of do whatever I want. But I think
Robert Pattinson's the king of that, to be honest. Like, I think he's got the best post-franchise filmography personally.
Definitely.
Like I think of Daniel Radcliffe as well, who's gone off and done some weird stuff post Harry Potter, but no, I think Robert Pattinson, I mean, he's getting back into some blockbusters now, obviously Tenet and the Batman next year, but no, he has a nice window there of like 2010s where he's put out some interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I like how he just like so openly hates Twilight. Just absolutely shits on it whenever he can.
The best is some of the interviews that he did, like for the last one, where he's just openly, I hate all of this, but I guess go see Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's one of the most amazing things.
Yeah, I mean, just more into Andrew Garfield than Under the Silver Lake. Do you guys remember? So obviously you saw Nick, Jonathan, you as well?
Under the Silver Lake?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. Do you guys remember it just like being hard to find for like years? Like it took me so long to find that.
So that was the thing where I think it was supposed to come out the year previous, but then I think A24 took it to the Cannes Film Festival. And even like, so like you typically, like when you take stuff to Cannes, if you get a good response out of that, it's like, oh, like there's a lot of cineasts there who are like, oh, I can really understand what this movie's getting at. But even a lot of those people who saw those movies, they're like, I have no idea what to do with this movie. Like this, the worst thing ever, the best thing ever kind of movie.
It is divisive.
Or if you look on like IMDb, it's like a lot of 9 and 10s out of 10, or like 1s and 2s. There's no in between. But A24 was just kind of like, we have this very strange movie. We have no idea what to do with it. I think they just dumped it on VOD.
What did you guys think of it?
I really like it. I think it's great. It's another one of those where I totally understand every objection to it because it is so weird and so all over the place and has those weird animations that come out through it. It's spreading in all directions, but it's this like long, crazy conspiracy movie where there also isn't really a conspiracy, but then there also is. It's a very bizarre thing about finding meaning and when there is no meaning in anything. So I don't know. As an existential dude, I kind of like that.
I think the 2.5 hours is what kind of makes it cool, to be honest. Like, we love our short movies, right? We love our 90, 100-minuters, but
Of course.
I think the fact that this is a 2.5 hour, like, kind of weird piece of nothing is kind of cool. Like, it's kind of like good on the director there for getting that. But yeah, I didn't love the movie, but I'm not mad I watched it. I thought it was fine, and like, I thought it was interesting enough. I feel like under different circumstances, maybe you enjoy it. But yeah, it's odd. I'm just
Yeah.
it's a really strange film.
I don't know. I liked it, but like I'm looking at the synopsis right now on IMDb, and I like don't remember this movie. I guess one, I saw a 139-minute runtime. I don't even remember that. I can't believe it's that long, and I watched it. Don't remember that. I can't even really tell you what happens in it because I think it just like left my brain. But I'm seeing like images right now.
It's a fever
So,
dream. That's all it is.
Yeah,
It really is,
does.
yeah.
It's like I remember I liked it, but I can't even tell you why.
Because there's like at one point there's like a hobo troll that shows up in that movie, right? That leads him to the final.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. There's so many weird things in that movie.
What?
But yeah,
I'm losing my mind.
it's definitely one of those where I think it's the quintessential I went out and was a star. Now I want to do a weird cult movie. And I think the Under the Silver Lake, even the way it was released, where even A24, who backs a lot of very strange movies, they were like, we don't have no idea what to do with this.
Like, what the fuck do we have?
Yeah, like, come on, David Robert Mitchell, we gave you this money and you made this. Like, what the hell do we do with it? But I think it is one of those that immediately got some kind of cult following because it's just too weird and too bizarre to just dismiss. And that's kind of how I feel about mainstream as well. But it seems like throughout all of these movies where it seems like Andrew Garfield is just like trying to like purge something from himself. And I kind of feel bad for him. But then also you read about it and he's like, I feel great. And it's like, okay, I hope,
Yeah,
I hope
Birdman effect.
Yeah, before we do end on Garfield though and move to this week's MovieBabble Club choice, I did want to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think he's in the Spider-Man coming up this year?
Yes.
Well, according to him, no, right? Because he said he didn't receive a call or something
bullshit.
like that. Yeah.
He's lying through your fucking teeth.
Yeah, I mean, like, I watched the video of him saying that, and I don't know. He's acting. He's doing some acting in there. I think he's got to be in it, but I'm feeling like it's a small role. But I do want to see him in it because, I mean, I think we know at this point Tobey Maguire is going to make some sort of appearance. But
yeah. But to you Marvel fans out there who are like making these theories, if they're somehow not in this movie, you guys are gonna be so fucking upset. Oh my god, you guys need to curb your expectations right now. Just in case.
That's the thing. It's gonna be it'll be a disaster if neither of them are in it. Like it's
like Marvel fans, you don't want to follow the same trajectory as Star Wars fans, where everyone's just unhappy no matter what the movie is. It's like y'all better watch yourselves. Because I'm a Marvel fan as well, but I'm still, if they're not in it, if it's good, I'm still gonna enjoy it.
Of course. So. Open mind, just go in there and just watch it, right? Just like no expectations. I mean, you already know you're gonna get Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx. They're coming back, so I mean, you got some, but yeah, you're right. Curb those expectations.
Yeah, there's something poetic about. Yeah, there's something poetic about him returning to Spider-Man after all of this. After shitting on a desk with Johnny Knoxville. So it's quite
swinging
something.
Through New York.
Oh, that's good. So Nick, it was your choice this week. So take it away with the Dead Ringers.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking about a lot of weird movies this week, guys.
He's in a mood.
Dead Ringers. Yeah, Dead Ringers was my pick for the Babble Movie Club. Mostly just because there was the news last week that David Cronenberg was coming out with his next movie next year called Crimes of the Future. And he hasn't made a movie since like 2014. And he's been open about how basically he's too weird to get money from studios anymore. But luckily Neon jumped up to give him some money. But yeah, I've never seen Dead Ringers, and it was considered one of his best. And it's something. It's something of a movie. It's very, very strange. So I guess a quick synopsis before we all jump into it together. But it's Jeremy Irons playing as two different gynecologists. One is named Elliot, who is the more suave of the two, right? He feels a little better about himself. He's more open to talk to women. He's just kind of the not the scamp of the two, but he's just more just out in the open. And then you have his brother Beverly, who is more of the bookworm of the two, where he's kind of created all of the research that has funded their careers basically as gynecologists and leaders in their field. And he's the one doing all the work behind the scenes. And he's very terrified to talk to women at all times. And they have a very, very odd psychosexual relationship with themselves and everyone else they interact with, where they basically Elliot has a sexual relationship with a woman, then he passes her off to Beverly when he gets bored, and the cycle repeats and repeats. It's a very odd, obviously Cronenberg thing to do in a movie. But yeah, I quite liked this movie for how weird it is. But what did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen too many David Cronenberg movies, but all I know is like body horror. So this one was, I don't know, surprisingly tame, I guess. I mean, in my opinion, at least for what I was expecting, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely a lot more psychosexual, I guess. And I was like, I watched it when I woke up this morning because I had a late night last night. So I'm like still a little sleepy, and I was like watching it, and it took me maybe like 15-20 minutes before I realized Jeremy Irons was playing both characters. So that's the kind of state of mind I was in. I was like, man, these guys like really look alike, but they're the same. But
I was like, wait a minute.
yeah, I was like, oh, they're the same. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I do kind of like it. I mean, it's definitely more, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to say connected to it. That sounds really weird, but like his other stuff, like The Fly, I feel like I watch it and I'm just like, oh, that's gross. That's cool. Like whatever. I don't really, but this one I was like, felt more invested in some of his other shit. So yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I like that since I'm Canadian and everything's American in this world. I like that niche Canadian stuff. And this movie won, it won Best Picture at the Canadian version of the Oscars. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm watching this.
Did it really? That's hilarious.
It's pretty much swept. It won like eight out of 10 awards that it got nominated for. It's like top 10 Canadian films of all time. And Cronenberg, he's famous Canadian director. But yeah, I love that niche stuff. So no, I liked it a lot. I think it was good. I think that ending was pretty haunting. But it was good. And Jeremy Irons is always great. There were a few scenes even where I was like, who's who? Like what brothers what? Like there were a couple scenes where I was kind of off on that. And as you said, Nick, it's probably more of just how kind of in depth Jeremy Irons was with these characters. Like there is nuance there. He's not kind of just playing to each one's type, right? So it was good though. I certainly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, obviously there's two of them, but it's clearly like opposing sides of this, like of one psyche, you know, how they're so interconnected, and at the end, in which we lead to that kind of awful ending. But yeah, kind of what John was saying earlier, where this is for a movie about two gynecologists, one of them going mad with like a drug addiction and whatnot, and forging like these crazy medieval weapons to use in the while he's doing procedures and whatnot. It is kind of a subdued movie where a lot of the weird horror stuff, there's one dream sequence where there's body horror. But other than that, there's like what violence there is in this movie is kind of off screen, right? Or it's just below frame or something like that, where it's just heavily implied or it's artistically done. So you're not getting like some crazy gross out thing. It really is more about the connection to these two people have, and obviously that this one psyche has, and it's just that like one can't live without the other. There's like that crazy breakdown, and obviously there's the weird connection that both of them have with the main actress. What's her name? Genevieve Bujold. Is that how you say her name? I don't know, but
Probably.
she's really terrific in it too. But yeah, it is really something. I would compare it to, have you guys seen Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Steven Soderbergh's first movie?
No, I want to so
Not
bad.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll leave the details out, but the two movies remind me of each other, where they are about deeply personal like ideas and like introspection of the self and kind of the horrors that we like to keep trapped away from other people, and how much you can actually let people know the real you. But both of them are very, very tame, but they feel like they're undressing you just by the way like they're having very forthright conversations about very tough topics. It's both of them are very tough watches, but also terrific. But yeah, this movie is it's weird because there's not a lot of plot to this movie, right? It's just Jeremy Irons just kind of talking to himself for 2
this was
hours.
a weird movie for me to watch when I woke up. I gotta say.
Yeah, I think it's very, very bizarre. What were you gonna say, Brennan?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. That's kind of the good end of the Soderbergh down there. We'll forget about the Oscars.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, dude. Everything about the 2021 Oscars, I have seriously blocked out of my mind.
Yeah, I mean,
all of your videos about making the clips because the Oscars can't have been just my favorite thing ever.
Oh, appreciate it.
They're so funny.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, for sure. I enjoyed it, but yeah, you're right. It is mostly subdued, as you said. It's not like when the crazy shit does happen, it doesn't get in your face with it. It kind of just, you're watching it, you're experiencing it, you're it's kind of just happening, as it's kind of like being executed in just a normal fashion. And I think that is certainly a stylistic choice, but I think it's a good one to kind of try to have you, I wouldn't say normalize the world that you're watching, but just kind of feel it in more of a way and not be shocked by it. But yeah, it's still a pretty wild movie at times.
Yeah, it's very downbeat a lot of the time, where it's just this. I feel so bad for the Bev character in this, because it's literally like the lack of plot in this movie really allows the gradual and then very steep decline of his mental state to just really stand out, where he's just losing it, and all of a sudden he's taking so many pills, he's getting like drug withdrawal and all this stuff, and just going nuts. It's just, yeah, it makes you think twice about. I think I will say what John was for you to say earlier, but I relate to this movie. I feel like everyone should, right? Because it's just it's a very personal, introspective movie in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
I do appreciate that. Even with The Fly, like Cronenberg there's a lot of weird shit, but there's like a human element to it, right? Because it's about that movie is like about cancer, it's about someone dying, a loved one dying. I think this one is just a lot about just how you view yourself and how you want to present yourself in a lot of different ways like that. And then it's also just about like all the crazy connections he makes between like the insides of someone versus the outsides, and just the like hinting at the grotesquerie of that is just very bizarre. And like motherhood and what that means to all of this, it's quite a bit.
Good Mother's Day picnic. I must say though, Cronenberg, he's got a crazy mind. But
yeah,
for this week, that is pretty much it with the MovieBabble podcast. I want to thank you guys both a lot for coming on this week. You can check out Jonathan's stuff at the Film Drunk on YouTube, and then obviously with MovieBabble, we got our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we got all that, and then moviebabble.com is where you can find all of our content. We'll be back next week with another episode as always, and thank you guys for coming on.